Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Better Minneapolis podcast. Today I'm here with Meg Forney, who is your current Park Board Commissioner at large and is running for re-election. So hello, Meg.
Hello, Terry. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not running anymore. The knees are shot, and so I don't say I'm running
now
anymore.
You're walking for it? Too much pickleball.
Thank you. Well put.
Tell the audience why you're running for re-election.
Well, thank you. Yes, I am running because probably number one, I'm just absolutely passionate about our parks. And it's been a privilege to be commissioner for the past 12 years. I was also president for 3 years. So I just realized that now that I'm no longer president, things that are really, really critical to me and to this community still need to be done. And when you're the president, you're there to deal with all of the board issues and to onboard, commissioners, et cetera. Now, no longer doing that, I'm able to really focus on those things that are really critical to me. And I kind of refer to it as a three-legged stool. Mm-hmm. First of all, what we refer to as equity or accessibility, or what we refer to in our park budget is our system equity investment. Then the next thing that I'm very interested in is our tree canopy. Our tree canopy is diminished in certain areas, and that's where our highest health disparities are, where our heat islands are, and air quality is horrible. And then the last thing that is really essential to me is to incorporate more alternative funding or revenue for us. During my 12 years that I've served, we've actualized, I guess is the word to put it, 8 new revenue sources. And I want to continue to do that because right now our budget, our park board budget, over 80% is on the backs of our residential and commercial taxpayers, and that's not sustainable. So those are the 3 things that are really important to me in the next term. And the first one, like I say, all of them are related. And so that's why I call it the three-legged stools, is that they each hinge on each other. So the first one is what I really would like to talk about, and I did bring in some graphics.
Great.
To really demonstrate to people what we hear too often is about equity and accessibility, to the point that I feel in some ways it's kind of lost its meaning or importance. And so I wanted to demonstrate to you. So the first slide we're going to see is a very powerful graphic of what public access means to bodies of water. So the first one is of Lake Minnetonka, where there's very, very little public access. And you can see that we have incredibly expensive homes that are on the lake. But then as soon as you get away from the lake, they diminish substantially. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at the chain of lakes, or the 3 lakes, Bede-Makaska, I'm assuming, and I'm not positive what those lakes are, but I'm assuming they're Bede-Makaska, Harriet, and possibly even Lake of the Isles that are in there. It says 3 lakes, but I'm not sure. Anyway, if you go to the next slide, it really demonstrates to you that the values at Lake Minnetonka, like I said, are huge on the lake. But they before I move on, so I make sure I understand what we're looking at here, and some people might be listening without the visual. So the one graphic here is just showing with the blue bars that around Lake Minnetonka you see some really expensive homes, and the dark blue ones are over
is that $6,634.
Bingo.
Right? Okay. So some very expensive homes, really no surprise around Lake Minnetonka, but that's not part of your funding, right? You're just showing this to show that people who live on Lake Minnetonka, there's not a lot of public access, right?
There's not a lot of public access, and the valuation of properties goes down substantially if you're not adjacent or on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of public access, and all of our public, our lakes, have public access. So that's what the next graphic, yes.
The other one is showing that we don't have the bright blue, so that we don't have the homes in the over $6 million range. We have a few that are, light purple, over 300,000, over 400.
No,
million.
3 million,
Sorry,
4
3
million.
million. Okay.
Yeah, there's no commas on that
There are
graphic.
some, yeah. We need some commas. Okay. And I am going to move to then the next slide, which I think is this one.
Yep. So that's where it shows the values of these properties, and that, like I say, the further you get away from the lake, or let's put it this way, I think it's I don't know if is that 100 feet? No, it's 100 meters. Yeah, 100 meters, okay, away. There's some value, okay, but then you get a little bit further and it starts to dramatically fall off as far as the values of those homes. Because there's no access to those bodies of water. Whereas you go to the next slide, it will show how more equitable access is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is now Minneapolis Lakes, and we're seeing that the difference between right on the lake versus 950 meters, it's less, but it's not nearly as dramatic as in the other slide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, to equate it to the last thing or the third thing that is so essential to me when we're talking about real estate taxes and everything. So it is more evenly spread out, the values, and therefore the bills that people are paying. But it's more the fact of the quality of life that people have access to. Mm-hmm. is inequitable. So, like I say, we use those words too often. Well, access also means wheelchair access, things like that. So that's why I wanted to make sure that people understand what I mean. It means public access. So I'm not sure.
So are you kind of making the argument with this particular slide that the reason the cost is more even further away is because there's more public access to the Minneapolis Lakes?
The cost, the value,
Yeah.
the however you want to say it, it's a more equitable is the best word that I can think about it. And so I don't know what our next slide is, but so if you look at what that first the first slide is. It is about the fact that we have 23 and a half miles of lakeshore in Minneapolis. That's all fully accessible to everybody. It's publicly accessible. Everybody can be there.
And is that all managed by the park board?
It is all managed by the park board. And if you look at the map and everything, all of that lakeshore and everything is in South and Southwest Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. The only lakeshore that is in north or northeast happens to be north, way, 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 way up at the top. It's called Riley Lake, or Lake Riley. Anyway, that is the only lakeshore that's in any of those communities. And so that also is inequitable. And that was a conscientious effort by our founding, fathers, that they wanted to protect the lakes in the South and the Southwest. And a lot of that is because of racial covenances, things like that. And it was very conscientious because there were actually lakes, up in north and northeast. Okay, actually, I'm not sure about northeast. Anyway, and those were conscientiously, actually, Lake of the Isles was dug out and I think it's called Lake Sandy, and everything was dumped on. So what we, the park board, have been conscientiously doing is now making public access available to those communities that have not had access. Mm-hmm. And one of probably the major thing that I've been involved with for several decades now and everything is along the riverfront. Specifically
Upper Harbor Terminal, is that
well,
right?
Specifically what we refer to as above the falls. Mm-hmm. Okay? So above
that
the
sounds
sea,
like a soap opera or something.
above the falls.
Yeah, doesn't it? Tonight, above the falls.
So I'm not sure if most people are aware that the St. Anthony Falls is the only falls in the entire Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River is world-renowned, as I always say to people. It's the only song that probably all little kids know and everything. Mississippi. And yet, it was our sewer system. We turned our backs on it, and it became our industrial corridor. So the majority of those industries are leaving Minneapolis, okay, downtown in particular and everything. And it's not a once in a generation, it's a once and forever opportunity for us to take those lands back and give public access to all in an area that has been so dramatically underserved.
So if I understand, kind of part of your point one here, the equity, accessibility, you're looking to try and get more access for people to the Mississippi River, particularly above the falls.
Correct.
And so what's the situation right now? Is it all privately owned or?
I refer to it as a crazy quilt. A crazy quilt is where there's a little patch of, a cloth here and a little patch of cloth here that are all very different, okay? And what we're doing is we are literally sewing that patching of parcels along both sides of the riverfront and everything. So we've purchased tons of little places, parcels along the way that some of them were actually, we're still renting out until we can weave that together. We can, stitch it, all together and make a continuous path, kind of like what's on, around, Lake of the Isles, what's around Badema-Costco, what's around, all of them have these paths and everything. So have the same thing to occur along the Mississippi. And therefore, give people access to bodies of water. And why is access to bodies of water so important? There is something about Mother Nature that when we see water, the tranquility that comes to it, the literal cleansing that happens as a result of seeing water, whether or not you even touch your toe in it and everything like that, it is something to our soul, that totally we can relate to. And it's a very powerful experience that, like I say, North and Northeast residents have not had access to.
Well, I think, so certainly below the falls, there's a lot of access, a lot of great parks down there. I think, what's the phrase I hear a lot about with the parks, like everyone's within 15-minute walk? What is it they say?
So the Trust for Public Land, okay, which is an incredibly great institution, has set up these matrix, okay? And what they're doing is they're trying to push park systems throughout the United States and everything to keep on doing better. And so therefore it used to be that they measured everybody by a 10, I think it's it was a 10-minute, it's a 6-block walk away from a park. But there could be a freeway in between. So they changed that matrix, and now it's a 10-minute walk. Okay. So, if you have to go across 35W to get to that park, obviously, no, that should not be in the matrix. So anyway, they're constantly changing that particular part. And thank you for bringing that up, Terry, because what one of these slides or a couple of these slides talk about is that they rate our park systems of a population over a certain amount every year. And we've always been, I think the first couple of years we were below the population amount. Anyway, so we have been in the top 3. Last year we were number 3, and Washington, D.C. was number 1. Okay, so one of the reasons why we were number 3 is because of equity.
Okay. Does that help, does this slide help us
thank
kind
you.
of get that into perspective? What are we looking at here?
Yep, so those are the various things that they measure, okay? Acreage, access, what I was talking about, investment in amenities, and the last one, like I say, is equity. Now show the one for Minneapolis.
Okay, this is Washington, D.C.
That's Washington, D.C., apologize, yes. And they were rated the number 1 in their park score. And we, like I say, we were rated number 3. And the biggest difference, like I say, is the 60%. Now, if you also, and I probably didn't include it to you and everything, as far as the amount of money that each community invests per person.
So I'm just, before we move
Sure,
on.
yeah.
So acreage, we have 64. Shoot, I changed slides here. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how we compare to DC, but also, okay, here's DC, acreage 55, so we're bigger than that. We both have access of like 99, investment of 100. Let's see, amenities, they're at 88. Let's see, we are at, gosh darn it, sorry for my technical problems here. Okay. I think it was 4. That's DC. Gosh. Sorry, people. Okay, here's Minneapolis. Amenities. Wow, so we're way above DC. They have 88. We have 96. Equity, we're at 60 points. They are at 87. So that seems to be the big difference between us and
Bingo, right.
Okay.
And one of the things that one of our staff members is having, shall I say, a discussion with the Trust for Public Land is how you measure equity. And one of the things that Washington, D.C. has is a great deal of acreage, okay? But it's not programmed. It's not activated anyway. Whereas ours is until this year, okay? So Graco is the most recent, nope, we're not at that yet.
Not at it yet?
Nope,
Okay,
exactly.
all right.
Graco, that's the name of the park and everything like that, is our most recent activated park, or I shouldn't even put it wasn't activated. We opened it, the ribbon cutting happened. But we did not have enough staffing to actually activate it as a recreation center, okay? And it was actually being used as an event center, okay? You could go and have a wedding reception there, that type of thing, because we didn't have enough staffing to fully program it, okay? And that's the difference between, like I said, with Minneapolis parks, we program all of our parks, okay? Whereas Washington, D.C. does not program it, okay? They sit fallow, okay? Are they out there mowing it and cultivating it, making it, accessible to everybody? Those are the things where they are not doing as well per what our staff is reflecting on. So a part of our budget for next year, probably the 2 primary things that we advocated for with what's called the Board of Estimate and Taxation was for the activation of Graco and the activation of our next park that's going to come online called the Upper Harbor. And I hate the word terminal, but anyway, that is what it was called. So a part of setting the levy, we were able to put onto the budget for next year 9.25 staff people. That's for programming, but also it's for just mowing, that type of thing. So just regular maintenance, which is like what staff is trying to say to the trust is that DC doesn't do that. We do that. And that's where a lot of the equity imbalance, per se, in the way they judge things, seems to be off.
So
but that's what I'm trying to, advocate for is true activation, similar to what's happening in South and Southwest, or has always happened in South and Southwest.
So you mentioned making that case to the trust. Is this the trust you're talking about?
Yes, the Trust for Public Land, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. And they're the ones who judge every year, and like you say, they're constantly changing the matrix so that, we are always aspiring and becoming, more and more
And
better.
why is having a good score important?
Professionally, I'm not a professional park person, but a professional person, you always want to try and do better.
I mean, but I guess I was saying, does it help raise money or anything like that? Or do people come here to kind of see what we're doing right versus what we're doing wrong in this score? Or is it just kind of for, it helps us know that we're doing well?
It helps us know, like I say, it helps professionals know who, like I say, always want to, raise the bar, as far as, what we can be doing. And, we've been doing a really great job and everything. And that's where we see, maybe where they could change things up. But, like I say, that particular, Graco, which the facility is actually called a river hub, so that's what I prefer to call it, is the river hub. It has what's called a sparked studio in it.
Yeah.
And
And so for people who don't know what Spark Studio is, it's a newer program. I think it's great. It's to help young people learn to do stuff like we're doing right now, like put on podcasts, use computers, edit video and stuff, right?
Exactly. And to be frank, when Superintendent Bangor actually presented that, I just thought, what does that have to do with parks? I mean, it's like, no, we want to get kids out into the environment and everything. What I learned is, no, it's about we need to go where kids are. And by doing this particular program, we're able to create one-on-one relationships. And that's what's so critical. My former husband actually was the juvenile justice consultant for the National Board of YMCA's for a program that was called NIPM, National Youth Project, using mini bikes. So the kids, of course, thought, oh, cool, I'm going to have a mini bike. I can ride. No, you spend the majority of your time doing maintenance, which means an opportunity to do one-on-one. We're doing one-on-one.
And so I think that goes back to like one of the chief things that distinguishes our park system is how much emphasis it gives to youth development, right? I mean, I don't know if every park does that, if Washington, D.C. does that, but there's childcare that they do, right? After school programs, things like that. So what's happening on that front? Are there programs that you're proud of or supporting for youth programming and that sort of thing?
Probably the big things, which is not, should we frame specifically programming, but it is, is we are making the largest investment we have ever made, in one single park, and that's North Commons. Because North Commons has the highest youth population in the entire state adjacent to that particular rec center. And that's a huge investment.
Is that the one downtown?
No, it's, what should I say? It's just between Plymouth and Broadway. Actually, it's right between North High School and the YMCA. I don't think it's called YMCA of the North, but anyway.
On the north side.
Yeah, the north side, thank you. Yeah, right, exactly. So it's a wonderful campus because it has these two, great institutions already there, and we are the connector. Anyway, we realized, number one, that is the disparities in that community and how essential it is for us to meet the needs of those kids, to engage them early, and that is really what the big intent is. And we were able to do that with private support through the Minneapolis Parks Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
They were a huge fundraiser, but also Senator Bobby Joe Champion, he was able to go to the state, and we were able to get funding from the state. So, I mean, it was a multi-pronged effort to make that happen. Unfortunately, we were initially talked about tearing it down, building something new, but between, cost of construction, not quite getting all of the money that we wanted to and everything like that. It's a complete remake that's going to be awesome, totally awesome. I'm very excited.
So what's the timeline on that one?
I'm not positive, but I think it's another year. And the water park also is being rehabbed, I guess is probably the best way to say. Anyway, it's really, really exciting. And like I say, in an area that has been so thoroughly underserved and very critical. And so that's what, like I say, my whole agenda has been about equity and access. And that's why I wanted, so much to share with you, what did I mean by that? And, public access is critical. And so what we're doing along the riverfront is just so powerful. I happen to be a rower, and I row on what's called the gorge, which is below the falls. And I mean, to be on water, to look at water, I mean, here I am down in this gorge in this major metropolitan area.
Yeah, I've seen them doing it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. And I tell my coach and everything, oh, yeah. I want to improve my skill set, but your most important job is to point out the eagles, pull out the herons. I mean, it does. It lifts you in such an amazing way. And I want others to experience that. Excuse me, I get emotional.
That's okay. This show does that to people. Are there other slides we should be looking at here?
I can't remember if I had any more.
Let's see.
Oh, yes. So anyway, Graco.
Equity, 20%. This is another slide.
Yeah, that's a better description of what they measure as far as the equity matrix in their matrix, okay? But the next slides are very, very significant. So we have this park that's called Graco, and it is because we ended up in a lawsuit with Graco, and as a result of it, they actually did give us $3 million, and that's how we were able to accelerate getting that park made and putting the rec center on it and everything. But they also asked that it be called Graco. Anyway, so they have their headquarters there and their assembly. I'm not even sure what to call it. But anyways, this huge warehouse anyway, so for those people who don't know what Graco is, Graco, when you go to McDonald's and you go and you get some ketchup, that pump, okay, think of that in like 100 times bigger, okay? That's what they make, okay, is those types of whatever. That's
condiment pumps?
No, it's more than a condiment pump. They started it actually as a lubricant around automobiles, I believe. Okay.
So tell us more about what it's going to be. We've got this slide up here about the Graco, Minnesota properties. It looks like it's nearly 40-acre Graco site along the Mississippi riverfront. So
right.
Create a vision for us.
So therefore, Graco, as I was saying, okay, has this headquarters and then whatever their plant that's there, okay? Anyway, they've decided to move, okay? And they're going to move out of town, like so much of our industry is moving out of town, okay? Because it's, cheaper, et cetera, whatever. And probably also they can get more workers. Anyway, so within the next 5 years, they're going to be leaving, okay? And so what I'm showing here on this slide and everything is it's almost 40 acres. That's adjacent to the river, okay? That plant that I was talking about and everything, there's not one single solitary window that looks onto the Mississippi, okay? So, they're not there because of the Mississippi, but I am sure that their property has probably increased in value by being adjacent to a park.
Okay.
Okay? So what you're seeing is those 40 acres, the majority of it, I think it's 60% of it, actually happens to be parking lots. Just asphalt, okay? There's very, very few trees on that. And what each one of those parcels is showing you is how much they, Graco, are paying as far as real estate taxes. So once they sell those, do you think maybe we're going to have a little bit more as far as real estate taxes coming into us?
I would say we'd maybe, I guess I'm confused. Who's buying this?
But they're not.
Isn't the park buying it?
Nope, no. So we own the property. That's the bottom very portion. You can just see it's kind of a triangular space. Okay, that's ours. We're not going to be buying anything more. Okay, we don't have anything. But somebody's going to want to buy that because of that river and because of that park. Okay, so in other words, we once again, as we showed in the first slide and everything, by having access, we create then.
Well, so if someone else is buying it, then the access isn't going to change, right? Because now this is all going to be in private hands. They're going to do whatever they do with it.
Nope, we have access all along the whole shoreline.
Okay.
Okay, so that little tiny little thread that you see that's adjacent to the blue, okay, that's a trail, okay? So that's a pedestrian and a bike trail, okay? That we have an easement across, okay? We could not get it, we thought that we were to own it. That's what the lawsuit was about, but that's a totally different story. Anyway, but no, once again, you know, it's us weaving, you know, this linear path on both sides of the river, is what we've already established that, and therefore have probably increased the value of each and every one of those parcels. Okay.
So just so I understand, the amount of access to the river with Graco isn't changing. It's already there.
Bingo.
But you're kind of trying to make the case that because of the proximity to the park and to the river, this land is going to sell for a lot and bring in a lot of tax dollars.
Whatever is going to be built there is more than likely going to be of substantially higher value than what those parcels are right now. And I'm sorry, I don't know if it's on the next sheet or not, but there is one parcel that was created. It's along, what is that? Oh, come on, what street am I on there? And the amount of property taxes that it alone is bringing in is about what they are bringing in. So each one of those parcels are going to be, okay, so there, yeah. So the total market value of that is 72 million, and the total amount of taxes that are bringing in right now, today, is 708. More than likely, that's going to increase. And that's what we have been. When I talk about new revenue or alternative revenue, how we as parks also stimulate more revenue commercially and residentially. And how, once again, it happens more equitably because of this public access that we will continue to have.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding you correctly, I think you're saying that the share of money coming back to the parks maybe should be greater because the parks themselves are increasing the value of properties near the parks. Therefore, there's kind of this knock-on effect of the parks raising more tax dollars by their sheer existence. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I don't think anything more is going to come back to us, okay? But right now, as I said in the beginning and everything, is that so much of our budget is on the backs, actually literally on residential property owners, because our commercial properties have diminished in value, okay? Whereas what we do is the parks and everything, we raise values of properties, okay, by being adjacent to an open body of water. So more than likely, by virtue of Graco selling those properties, more than likely the commercial real estate revenue will increase. So we add value, okay? And like I say, they realize that, okay, well, if we get this improved, okay, by having a park there and everything like that, well, you know what? It might raise the value of our properties when we go to sell it, because I'm sure they had it on the horizon that they were going to. Was it manipulative? I don't mean to be take that, but I'm merely saying that what we add value in so many different ways. And that was what the first slide was to show and everything, is that we spread that value. The way I like to say it is we raise everybody's boat.
Yeah, I mean, it's the parks are one of the things that make Minneapolis such a great place to live. Could you kind of summarize then with the alternate funding, what are the sources that you're looking at? I'm not sure that's clear to me.
Right, and
right?
I'm sure it's not, because I haven't gotten into it and everything.
Oh.
So, I mean, we've brought in a whole bunch of new revenue, okay, is what I was saying. During my presidency, we enacted 3 different revenue sources. One of them was about stormwater. Now on your utility bill, you'll see it says Park Stormwater Fund, okay? The next one happens to be parkways, okay? The city actually has been the one who's been responsible for parkways for a couple of decades now. But the amount of money that they were putting towards that, it would have taken over 100 years to address the issues of our parkways. Now they are being held accountable to a PCI, a pavement condition index, that is equivalent to their pavement condition index. So therefore, our streets, our parkways will be addressed earlier. And then the last one happens to be our endowment. So it's got 3 buckets, we call it, anyway, that basically are always underfunded, such as historic structures. We never get the money for that. That's not something that's going to give you immediate funding, but we need to deal with the long range, okay? We've been around for 140, 2, maybe 3 years now, and as I say, that's basically equivalent to 7 generations, and therefore we should be considering what 7 generations from now will we be doing. And an endowment is what I've been advocating since I became a commissioner 12 years ago. I always say to people that government is responsive, but it's kind of like a barge, very slow to turn.
Sure.
So,
now, you're talking about an endowment. Is that different than the foundation, the Minneapolis Parks Foundation?
It's different, but it is actually, they are the ones who are responsible for it, and therefore advocating for the funding of the endowment, correct? So,
okay.
But it is a different slot of what their task is. So anyway, for me, I'm looking at a lot of alternative types of things. Probably the biggest thing is that we are underfunded at the state. And that, to me, is something we really need to figure out how we can get that. In a lot of ways, okay, I like to put it this way. During the COVID, we basically found, or during the pandemic, we found out that we could almost do without a downtown. Also, we found out we could almost do without mass transit. But we found out that parks are essential services. I mean, it really, as far as everybody's mental health, the fact that people accessed our parks is so critical. And yet, things like operations and maintenance through the state and everything, we are underfunded. Our local government aided, we are underfunded. And yet we are we are the economic engine to this state, and yet we're not getting, number one, our fair share, but disproportionately, more is going outstate than it is to us.
So you're talking about the overall city revenue.
Overall city revenue, but also park. No, the
Yeah.
park board, we have taxing authority with the state, okay? And so we, by, like I say, state statute, we should be receiving, 40%, and we're receiving, just a little bit over 8%.
So you mentioned Bobby Champion earlier, helping with the north side. Is he helping to overcome that gap? I mean, do we have people in place in state government that recognize that this is an issue and they're going to be helping us get more money, or has that been falling on deaf ears, or because many people have to know that we're getting underfunded in the parks, right? So,
Well, I always love to tell this story. So Scott Dibble, Senator Scott Dibble, okay, and I were having lunch with Kathy Abeni, who's now the president. She was vice president, and I was president when we had this lunch. I have no idea what I said to Scott, but he suddenly looked at me with this almost terrified look, and he said, "You guys are orphans." He had put, along with Scott, along with Frank Hornstein and everything, our transportation bill, which basically addressed all of the roadways, anything, had to do with roadways in the entire state, except for us. And that's why he referred to us as orphan, is that we fell outside of that because we are an independent governmental entity and everything like that. And there's a few others that were also left out of it, orphans, as he put it, and everything like that. So this past legislative session, he actually addressed that. And now I believe it's going to be $250,000 that we will be receiving every year as a result of that. Oops.
right.
So it's those types of things and those types of relationships. Like I say, Bobby Joe Champion, he's been a champion, okay? But those happen to be what's called our Metro Parks delegation. And we've all worked very well with each other and actually collaborate in how we go to ask for something, to make sure that there's a balance, that it's not always Minneapolis or always, anyway. So, but it's always in competition with the rural areas. And we happen to be in divided government right now, and so therefore getting our fair share has been difficult. So
it's funny because the situation you're describing to me sounds very much like the park and the city are a little bit in the same boat, in that we're not getting our fair. We're paying more into the state than we're getting back.
Exactly.
So.
And the city understands that. I mean, it's been fascinating to work actually with the mayor in raising his consciousness about the fact that, we are getting underfunded and the city through what's called local government aid. And so how can we maybe all go, to the legislature and advocate for that? So, and like I say, taking the burden, therefore, out of our, Minneapolis taxpayers. Little things that I've been working on also. Long story, I won't get into it and everything, but we, the park board, actually own almost 40 acres that the airport is on. We're not
so
paid.
They lease it from you, or?
No, we're not paid one single solitary penny.
Wow, that doesn't seem right.
So therefore, we went to them, to the, the airport commission and everything, and we said, hey, could we get one penny, $1 of every passenger that comes in or out, of the airport, or every pound that comes in and out and everything like that. And therefore put that to our trees. That's what I was advocating for, okay? No, apparently they don't allow any fee like that. Well, that's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep on advocating, keep on pushing that envelope, because it's
I think that's
really
a great idea.
40 acres and we're not giving penny one for it, So it's pretty ridiculous. So we are the only entity that can buy property outside of the city of Minneapolis. So I can't remember what the year was and everything, but there was a raceway out where the airport was. 2 or 3 years, and then it went out of business and everything. And so the city asked us to buy it, and that's why, we own the land there. So we were the ones.
How long has that been that you've owned the land?
I think it's close to 100 years, but I'm sorry,
Okay,
it's
okay.
escaping me what
It's
the
not
year
a
was.
history quiz. I was just curious.
Thank you.
So the election is Tuesday. I think there's 11, do I have that right? At-large park board candidates? 8, okay. How would you describe your being different from any of the other candidates? It sounds like you have this great knowledge of the institution, what's come before, and do you think you're emphasizing things like alternative income and stuff more than other candidates? Or like when you're door knocking and you're trying to convince someone to vote for you, what do you tell them? Yeah.
Well, it is the fact that, yes, I have been on the park board for so long, but it's beyond that. 76? Yes, 1976. My former husband and I bought our first property, and within 9 months of that, 13 elms were taken down. That's what activated me, catapulted me, whatever you want to say, into dealing with parks. So I have a long history with it. I understand that it is, as I remind particularly the mayor, it happens to be, it was intentional, a city inside a park. And how critical that is, and how we are merely stewards, or as Native Americans would refer to as, it's our relative, and how we care for that is something I am so grateful for. And I've never had any interest in any other higher office, because what I love about parks is you can touch it, you can feel it. And it really does define the quality of life within the city. And Terry, I don't know why you moved here, but I would say the majority of people who move here because of our parks.
Yeah.
Once again, I remind the mayor of when it was he decided to move here, and it's when he was doing the Twin Cities Marathon, and he was just coming upon Lake Nokomis, and that's when he decided that he wanted to move here. So the parks are the thing that bring people here, and that's why people also stay here.
Yeah. One thing I want to make sure I ask, and there's been a couple of high-profile issues in the parks with some crime, like there's a shooting at Boom Island, and they had to close the parking lot on Bide Makaska. Like, what's the future for things like that? What do you think needs to be done to make sure that people feel safe in the parks and those things don't happen?
I feel really proud of our park police, and a lot of it is because of the collaborative nature that they have with all the different policing entities, the Minneapolis Police, Hennepin County, Metro Transit, we could go on and on. And what you're referring to at Boom Island and at Bide Makaska, that was 4th of July a year ago. Because of a collaborative relationships and building a really robust plan and everything like that, this July 4th, there were no incidences whatsoever. So I'm really proud of the fact that they work collaboratively. There wasn't anything that happened there.
I think there was a Boom Island incident this
Not
year.
at 4th of July.
Maybe not at 4th.
No, exactly. No, there was something that happened at at Boom Island, and also a 13-year-old was killed, at Falwell, and that's why, just right across from Boom Island happens to be Graco, and as I indicated to you, or River Hub, which hasn't been fully activated. So that's why it was so critical to me that we make sure that this funding that we have for next year, to make sure that it is fully activated. The next thing I was going to say is we have not had any encampments in the parks since the beginning of COVID. Since that year. Okay. And it's because of our street reach. It's because of our community crime prevention, violence prevention staff develop relationships. And so if they hear that somebody is beginning to establish an encampment, they reach out to those people, develop a relationship to find out truly what are their needs. And they know what the resources are out there, and they can get people into what their specific needs are. It's really powerful, and I'm really grateful for their work that they've been doing. There's not, a stigma or a shaming. It is, we are here to help you, to really assist you. So we have amazing staff that is really constantly evolving to change things to make sure that we are there for the good of the community.
Great. Great. Well,
Which, by the way, I do need to brag about the fact that I happened to be the president that was at the time to be there. But last year at what's called our National Recreation and Parks Convention, our staff were awarded the gold medal. And that's a huge, it's like, the Oscar, and they deserved it. It's not necessarily me or the commissioners.
well, you can't be shy about bragging or promoting yourself right now because, this is the time to do it with the election a few days away. So I think we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that you feel we haven't touched on that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, because you brought up election, because some of these people probably may not see this until after the election, but if you do see this before the election, please remember to turn over your ballot. That's number one, okay? And you have the opportunity to vote for 4 commissioners, okay? You have your district commissioner that you get to rank, okay? First, second, third. Meaning, okay, you can vote for Terry, you can vote for me, you can vote for somebody else, okay? All 3 you can, first, second, third, okay? The really odd one happens to be the at-large, which is what I am running for. And you also have the opportunity to vote 3 people there, okay? But once again, first, second, 3. For those 3 positions, you're not voting first, second, third, first, second, third, first, second, third. No, it's just the opposite. It's just a straight line down. So utilize all of your opportunities, please, okay? And the at-large, it's a difficult thing to explain, but, once the a candidate receives 25% plus 1, then whatever the votes are underneath their name and everything start to get redistributed in a fractional way. It's not a full vote that goes over. Like I say, it's way over my pay grade.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it is complicated, and I would say, one of the downsides of, I don't want to, spend too much time talking about ranked choice voting, but in this type of election, it is complicated for people. So do you have an order that you recommend people vote in? So obviously they put Meg Forney first. Do you have a 2 and 3 that you recommend, or do you keep that to yourself?
First of all, I probably should say I am really, really grateful that people are running, okay? I don't want to get into too much detail here, but our city DFL endorsing convention, we all know was questionable. Mm-hmm. But the endorsements for Park Board were not vacated, and therefore, talking about equity again, has made an equitable situation. I'm very proud that all these people are passionate as I am, about park system and everything like that. But a voice that to me has been underserved happens to be an African American. Her name is Averi M. Turner, and I am just really, really proud of her. She's only 29 years old, which I think, you should say, oh, well, obviously she shouldn't be running. She was a semifinalist for Minnesota Teacher of the Year award. She has the maturity. She has the, she knows how to process and evaluate and analyze things. I went over some of the budget with her, and it really was exciting to listen to her. I believe she was an intern for the city, so she has hands-on knowledge. And so I would strongly suggest people look at her.
Okay.
She entered late in the process, but it is a voice that we definitely need. Of all of the at-large candidates, she is the only African American. So I would encourage people to
look her up. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what if they want to find out more about you? How do they do that?
Oh, megforney.org.
Megforney.org. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to try and get this on probably Saturday or Sunday for you. So.
Well, thank you, Terry, for doing what you're doing and bringing out the voices. You've been a real asset to our community.
Thank you. The end.